In this interview, I spoke with Brendan Duhamel and Dave Malcolm, the head of blockchain and the CMO of Myria, respectively. Now, after Brendan and Dave's introductions, we cover the 2 community questions, followed by several of my own questions that are specifically related to the Sigil launch, because there's a lot going on with that right now. And then we wrap it up with some other general questions that I've seen floating around their Discord. Now, as always, feel free to jump around with the timestamps below, and I hope you enjoy it, especially right at the beginning when I mispronounced Brendan's last name, right after he told me the right pronunciation. But seriously though, I did love chatting with these guys, and I think that you find a lot of value in this conversation. And if you do, make sure to subscribe and leave a comment and all that stuff. Now let's get into it. All right, guys, we're going to get started. I've got here Brendan Duhamel. I messed it up already.
I knew I was good. I messed you up completely by saying all that craziness about my last name. I should just answer the damn question. Yeah, Duhamel. It's fine. It doesn't matter. I'm not picky.
Awesome. Brendan Duhamel, the head of blockchain for Myria. And then I've also got Dave Malcolm, the CMO of Myria. Thanks for joining me, guys.
Yeah, great to be here.
Yeah, good to be here. Thanks for having us.
Cool. So I've got a couple of the community questions from my last video that we'll go over first. Well, after we do your kind of introductions. And then I know Sigil, with the Sigil launch, that's a big thing. So I've got a lot of questions on that. And then some other kind of questions I've seen floating around in Discord. So maybe to begin with, you guys want to do a little quick introduction of yourselves?
Yeah, sure. I can start if that's cool, Dave. So my name is Brendan. I'm one of the co-founders and the head of blockchain, as you mentioned, at Myria. I have been in blockchain in some form or another for a decade now. Started in the Bitcoin world back in 2012, had a payments company there, and then drifted to the strange world of enterprise blockchain for a period as the blockchain lead for what became the largest trade finance blockchain network globally. And then with the extra time during the pandemic, I got back into crypto proper and was lucky enough to hook up with the rest of the co-founding team at Myria. I've been working on this for solid 10, 11 months now. And I was a novice professionally to gaming before. I've always played games, but have not really embedded myself in the blockchain games ecosystem before this project. And I have to say, it's one of those use cases that the more you learn about it, the more excited you are about it. So every day I learn a little bit more about the problems that games have faced in the past without blockchain. And I get more and more excited about the prospect of what we can do to solve those. So yeah, really excited to be working in this now.
Awesome. Dave?
Yeah, I'm Dave. I'm the CMO at Myria. So my background is sort of a career marketeer, if you will, in the consumer space. I spent many years as the head of marketing and PR at Rockstar. So a passionate gamer from way back, looking after many titles from the PlayStation 2, titles like Manhunt, up to GTA 5. So I've spent a lot of time really enjoying working in the gaming space. And I took a bit of a hiatus and was working in consumer marketing and e-commerce before I then also found my way into crypto, initially as a sort of a passionate kind of novice, I guess, day trader. I've been following the space very carefully, and then was very excited to get the opportunity to join Myria and bring sort of my passion for crypto and gaming together in one space. So within the organization, I look after marketing and brand. And yeah, really excited to have a conversation with you today about what we're up to.
Yeah, me too. That's excellent. So let's now just jump right into the 2 community questions. So for people who didn't see my previous video, I did a kind of an explainer on Myria, and then I announced, if you can drop AMA questions, and then I chose my 2 favorite ones, which will be each of those 2 people are going to get a whitelist for the founders loot box. But let's get started on the first one. This one's a doozy of a question. And it's, what do you think? It's from Blind Boy in Discord. And what do you think are the pillars of sustainable gaming tokenomics?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll field that one. So I think the key to sustainable, and I kind of read sustainable as the longevity of the tokenomics, right? So the key to a long-lasting tokenomics is a good tokenomics to begin with. So I'll start by what I think good tokenomics are out of the gate. And I think the 2 key pillars there are and this is the more important of the 2, I suspect, although they're both key, is utility for the token, both utility in as many aspects as possible, but also utility which is broadly and well understood by the community writ large. So this isn't utility for some, and then other people in the community think that it's used for a completely different purpose. This is utility that is well understood, and I'll talk a little bit in a moment about kind of what the Myria or some of what the Myria utility is going to be, because it's a lot, so I won't touch on all of it. So that's pillar number one in terms of good starting tokenomics. Pillar number two is a understandable and a predictable supply curve. And this is importantly not a supply curve, which one of the founders like myself comes on here and says, Myria will only ever have 50 billion. The supply curve should actually be embedded in the smart contract. So for us, for Myria, we will have 50 billion, but that's not just my verbal commitment. That will actually be written directly into the smart contract and hard coded that way. So we don't have the ability to later say, ooh, we want a few more billion to do some project over here. That 50 billion is what it will be forever. And the unlocking thereof is at a predetermined schedule, which will last for 60 months after the TGE. So utility and a predictable supply curve gets you on the right track. And then in terms of the longevity of the tokenomics, we think it's really important to have diversity in terms of the utility of the token, and also the projects which are involved in kind of sustaining that utility. So by that we mean we're not going to be at all the only one developing games or products on the platform and using the token. We're going to make it extremely easy for partner games and partners generally in the ecosystem to come on and build with us. And I think that's really important from a risk standpoint, so that if for whatever reason the Myria suite of games has a downturn, people don't like playing Myria games anymore, well, that's okay, because we're working with eventually dozens of other partners out there that are producing their own uses of the token. So that's really important, is diversity across products and across partners. And then let me just circle back on the utility, because I talked about the locked in supply curve, but not the utility for Myria token. So right out the gate, we're going to have the node purchase eventually with the Myria token, as well as any protocol fees and in-game utility, including additional kind of power-ups or earning abilities, et cetera, will all be part of the Myria token. So we think that we're checking all three major pillars that I just mentioned there for sustainable tokenomics.
Awesome. Yeah. And I'm looking forward to getting more details and specifics on exactly how that's all going to play out.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
Cool. Let's move on to the next one. This one's from Discord user Bex. And it's in what time frame has Myria planned so far? 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, longer?
Yeah, so I like the suggestion that somebody could plan for 10 years in the crypto space. I think that would be difficult in any industry. I think it's particularly difficult in ours, and I think it's a good thing that it is, because I think the use cases and the sort of sub verticals that we'll be supporting in 10 years are almost the same way internet would be very difficult. People in the internet would be very hard pressed to predict early 2000s use cases in the early 90s. I think we're in a similar position now. So planning for anything beyond a 12 to 16 month timeframe, I think is difficult and maybe not the wisest. But we are really excited and hope to support. We're excited about and hope to support the really exciting possibilities with blockchain games in the future. And I think that is especially true in how the gaming world will more and more start to emulate real world economic activity. So you have ads in games, you'll have contracts between entities in games, you'll have a lot of these traditional economic models that we have in the real world in games. And you are by nature not interacting with each other in a common jurisdiction. So you would just not be able to write a contract that you would be able to today, because you're almost certainly interacting mostly with people in your own jurisdiction. So you have to have a system like the blockchain where you can execute these contracts automatically without relying on a centralized use of force to a government to do so. So we hope to support the broadest range of these cool ideas in the future. Anyway, that's a long tangent, but 10 years down the line, we hope to support some pretty cool stuff. In terms of immediate plans, though, that's what we want to focus on right now is the next 12 months. And I think the most important reason to mention there for why we're focusing on that is not just because it's difficult to plan beyond that, but also because we want to get a few products out to market first, and then work very closely with the community on figuring out where we want to spend our time and energy as a project on bettering these products. So we're going to release the L2 products, wallet, marketplace, an API and SDK for developers to come on and launch their own tools and products. We're going to have our games. We're going to have a public node sale. These are all things that we're definitely doing in the next 12 months. Most of what I just mentioned a lot sooner. And then from there, we're really excited to work with the community and plan beyond that.
Yeah. So it kind of sounds like, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you're kind of insinuating that in this industry, adaptability and ability to change with how things are changing in the industry is more important than saying like in 10 years, we're going to do this specific thing.
Definitely. But I do think it's fun and important to also like have, come on these calls and like as a community start to brainstorm about, like what would like automatic contract execution between somebody running an ad in a game and, the interactions with that, like what would that look like? And so, we're happy to have those conversations, but adaptability for sure is pinnacle.
I completely agree. Yeah. I think, there's no way of knowing. I mean, the industry is just barely 10 years old. So trying to say what it'll be in another 10. So. Okay, let's move on. I want to give Dave a chance to speak here. So maybe Dave, you can give us an idea of what the Sigil in the Sigil launch is, and then I've got some questions about that.
Yeah, sure. So the Sigil launch really, or the idea about it was that we were looking for a way to engage our community really early on, and looking for kind of meaningful ways in which to reward the Myrians for getting on board with the project really early. So it sort of serves two purposes: importantly, engaging the community and rewarding them, but it's also a really fantastic way of sharing the structure of what we're trying to do, getting people to sort of interact with our first products, if you will. And also it gives us an opportunity to start telling the story of the lore of the Myriaverse and getting people to engage with that. So of course they can then go and choose which alliance that they're going to engage with. And so, what better way to do that, particularly with the current market where it's a little bit doom and gloom. And, we wanted to reward the community. So we decided to make our very first collection of NFTs free to claim. As a bit of a gift. And of course, a strong community, as we all know, is absolutely imperative for any successful Web3 venture. And, we're really grateful for the enthusiasm and support that everyone has shown us so far. So, it's a way of showing our thanks and gratitude and support and, assisting us to continue building the Myria ecosystem.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, you actually just kind of answered my first question, which was, what value does it bring? So I think the community aspect of it is so important, especially.
If you still want to ask that, Josh, I don't mind, because I want to piggyback on something Dave said there, which is super important. From I didn't mention this at the beginning, but most of my role is on the engineering side, and so I have found in the blockchain space, because we're so often building for the future, it's difficult sometimes to actually test with live products and high volume, right? So just the fact that we were able to have 200,000 signups or beyond. I don't know what the final number was, but at least 200,000 signups on this Sigil event means that we're going to have a live huge number of users to begin testing the scalability that we really want to achieve on our L2 products. And we have something out there that the community, as I've talked about before, can like give us feedback on, and we can work to have better stuff. So it's always better to have a customer base already that you're supporting and building for than just kind of building and throwing stuff out into the ether and not getting feedback. So the fact that we have hundreds of thousands now who are already going to be interested in using the L2 is really awesome from an engineering perspective, to have that ability to really iron out the kinks that of course we're going to face as quickly as possible.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Especially with making your own L2, trying to test how things are going to work out in a test net and in a controlled testing environment is wildly different than testing it out out in the wild. So yeah, having that many people already interested and then going to be actively engaged in it will be really key to working out the bugs and making it efficient and stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, cool. So let's see. I guess the first Sigil question that I have, you already answered a couple of them, but we have 3 different alliances. I guess maybe it's better if one of you guys explain it so I don't give any misinformation.
Yeah, sure. So I think there are 3 different alliances: the Federation, Equinox, and Vector Prime. And what I would actually suggest is that that people go and check out our Medium page, and where you can read the law and kind of make your own decisions, which I think as well is very important, because when you sign up, your decision as you enter the Myriaverse is final. So it's very important that you choose one that you're happy with. But sort of at a high level, the Federation alliance is filled with mercenaries and militants. The Equinox, which spoilers, the one I chose, sort of sits in the middle of the 2 alliances, if you will, and they believe that there's I guess balance to be had. They believe that humans and the Rift can coexist, and there's a sort of a bit more love and unity. A classic for the marketing guy to choose the one in the middle, I think. And then Vector Prime is really focused on the digital. Thinks that humanity is just ready for evolution. Is looking for the digitization. Very focused on AI and futurism. So interestingly, I think that our writers have done an incredible job of scoping out 3 nice natural territories for people to fall into. And of course, that the law will be constantly expanding, and we'll be releasing more information about that. So yeah, go and have a good read. It's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's funny that you chose that.
Do I need to reveal mine also?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was Federation. The other 2 don't sound like teams that QA their code, so I wasn't interested in that. The Federation knows how to make sure that stuff works before they push it out. So that's important from an engineer's perspective.
Well, maybe Vector Prime is more of the move fast and break things kind of mentality.
I think so, yeah. Which maybe is cool in some places when there are hundreds of millions of dollars on the line. I think you have to be a little bit more careful sometimes.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, actually, I think I chose the Equinox as well, but it was between Equinox and Vector Prime for me. So I'm like, AI is going to happen. Might as well jump on board now.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think
go ahead. No, finish your thought.
I was just saying it's interesting because they're all fantastic in their own rights, but unfortunately, you only have to you only get to choose one. But yeah, you get to enjoy the stories and the lore as they develop over time. But decisions are final. So do your own research.
The question that I had was, is there going to be a method of trying to balance the number of players in each alliance, or will it matter if one of the alliances has way more players than the other 2 or something?
So I'll take the non-technical response to that and then hand over to Brendan. But actually what we've found is that they're pretty much evenly split, into thirds. And so I don't know what that says about, our audience. But I think it probably says that we've positioned them, as a really well balanced choice. So they seem to have naturally fallen into relatively equal amounts of followers. But of course, it is important. So maybe Brendan can add some more flavor to that.
Yeah, well, in fact, I won't add anything more technically because, as you say, it's worked the way that the writers have written the lore such that it seems that there's a sort of functional split, and so I think it's quite interesting that we kind of have gotten what we wanted in the way that it happened. So yeah, technically it's much better because there's going to be an even split from a functional standpoint in terms of utility and stuff. So there were going to be some ideas that we might have needed to implement in terms of encouraging one or the other over a period, but because our writers have done such a good job, that's probably not going to be required. Okay.
But if it did get unbalanced, you have methods that you could implement to kind of balance it out.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So then the next one. So when you go to claim your sigil, it's actually an NFT. So what? I guess you haven't announced a lot of it, but what are these NFTs for that are up for grabs when you claim them?
Yeah, sure. So I think the first thing is that there's a range of different NFTs. So there's sort of currently available to claim. There's 8 within each alliance, and they go from sort of your common sigil, as you will, and chests, and then more rarities as you go. And that's impacted by the various tasks and engagement that you have within the community. And so I think that's, people can dig in and go and have a look and explore them in a bit more detail. In terms of the actual utility within the game, we're still being a little bit closed about that before we sort of release the absolute detail of what they're going to do. But I think what's important is that these are sort of very early access, and will hopefully, of course, be very useful in the future as we release more games and information.
Cool. That actually answered my last one, is what are the utilities? But I guess we'll wait for more information on that. So then I've got a couple kind of questions that I saw in Discord floating around. And this first one, I'm actually really, really curious about, because when I made my previous video, I was trying to find the white paper, but it hasn't been published yet. So do you guys have a date of when the white paper is going to be published?
So I can't give you a specific date, but what I'll say is our thinking around the white paper, I mean, it's currently sort of in legal review, as you'd expect. But we see the white paper as really strategic for pre-launch engagement and information for the community. So it'll be released in line with the timing of our TGE event. And as we've sort of discussed fairly extensively within the community, we're going to wait for a slightly more appropriate time than right now, when market conditions have kind of stabilized a bit better and everyone can really benefit from that. So white paper coming soon. Yeah, we just want to make sure that we launch that closer to the actual TG event.
Yeah, and that kind of touches in on my next one, which is, when you guys have these kind of timelines more concrete, are you planning on releasing a more detailed roadmap?
Yeah, so I think the short answer is yes, because always as we sort of just traditional software development suggests that you have a broader roadmap further away, and then as you move closer to that period of time, then you get more detailed. And so certainly we can speak very specifically about kind of the next few months, right? So we've had our Sigil Launch, which we talked about. We're going to have a whitelist node sale. We have a partner, our first partner game, Moonville Farms, coming out in early August, and we have the suite, as I've mentioned, of L2 products coming out at the same time to support both that Moonville game as well as as well as, of course, the Sigil NFTs themselves. So, and this will be a continuous thing where we have broader kind of objectives for periods beyond the 3, 4, 5, 6 month period, and then we start to get very specific once those products are within that that kind of range.
So it'll be kind of like a changing roadmap, and as we progress, you'll see more things pop up on the near term while still being able to view the more far off goals.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is by design, right? This is how even some of the larger software organizations in the world are run. You have a bucket of requirements. Everybody knows these are the things we want to get done. And you say, hopefully within 2 years, we get these features, or, hopefully we'll get these features into the next iPhone. And then as you get closer and you see what objectives are met and which ones are starting to slip, then you can say, okay, now that we're 5, 6 months away, we can say this pretty confidently is going to be in this. And then you're 3 months away and you say, yeah, we're releasing our L2 wallet and marketplace, as well as our first partner game in early August. That's sort of the plan.
Cool. Yeah, that's actually coming up pretty quickly. Well, I'll be really interested to see how things start developing. It sounds like, right now things are a little bit in a waiting period, but there's a lot about to happen pretty quickly.
Yeah, we're excited. It's going to be a fun summer for sure.
Awesome.
Just on that as well, I'd like to add that, as we bring on more partners, obviously the roadmap changes and adapts as well. So you will notice just this week, we announced a partnership with AB de Villiers and announced a brand new game, a cricket game that we're building with him. So when things like that come up as well, we'll start talking about them and integrate them into the roadmap as well. So I think the best thing to do is obviously we have our structural roadmap, but then also all of the exciting things that we're doing with partners and new game launches. So they'll start cropping up, and you'll see them appear on the timeline as well.
Yeah. Okay. I just got 2 more questions. One, how or maybe an estimate, how big is the team now?
Yeah. So I'll answer that and then say a little bit more because I think it's cool because I've worked in a lot of teams where this isn't the case. But we're at roughly 150, and then over half, approaching 60% of that 150, which by the way is continuing to expand. So check out our pages if you're interested in coming along and helping. But roughly 60% are approaching that, as I said, are in engineering and product. So we have a lot of people doing awesome work to the message out, but we have even more actually building these products. So I think that's an important point for the community to know is that, we have a lot of us of this team with our heads down building.
Yeah, I think that's especially important because there's with such a broad goal of what you guys want to make in all these different games that your engineering team has to be massive to be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so then the last question I have is about the nodes. So for people who don't know this, there's the public node sale, which is coming up, which the whitelisting, as far as I'm aware, is still ongoing. There's going to be a raffle for the remaining public node whitelist sales. And then once that happens, as the nodes are purchased, the remaining ones, they're going to incrementally go up in price. What is the rate of price increase in those? And maybe you can share how much will the last nodes cost?
Yeah. Unfortunately, so we will be able to speak to that prior to the public sale. So we're not going to say, yeah, these are this, and then all of a sudden, 4 people buy the first 4, and then it jumps up by 2x. Everybody goes, what? So we'll release the specific schedule before the public sale. But at the moment, we know essentially just as much as you've said there, which is that we will have a tiered pricing model. There will be 55,000 nodes total. And as let's say we very likely use the every 100 nodes sold, it will increase by, for example, $100. So it's not going to be a sort of exponential curve or anything like that. It'll be linear, and it will be in fairly sizable chunks. So that's one of the ideas that we have floating around. But again, we'll release the specific schedule prior to the sale.
Cool. Yeah, and that makes perfect sense. As long as it's released before people are actually like,
that we're definitely committing to. Yes.
Cool. And then, okay, so that's all the questions I have. Do you guys, before we wrap up, do you have anything else that you want to share?
I mean, just from my perspective, thanks for having us, and also, just keep an eye on, all of our social channels where we distribute information really regularly. Please give us lots of feedback in Discord, and also if anyone hasn't yet claimed their Sigil NFT, then obviously to jump in there, choose your alliance wisely, and get involved. And yeah, thanks for your support.
Yeah, and be active in Discord. That's a big one.
Absolutely. Yeah, nothing for me. I'm excited. I gotta go back to building.
All right, awesome. Well, thanks, guys. Appreciate you guys having on. All the links for everything on Myria will be in the description, so everybody be sure to go check that out. And yeah, we'll have you guys on again. Maybe when there's more things to talk about.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot. This is great.
Thanks for having us.